Good morning, happy Sunday. Welcome back to KXAN Plus. I'm your host, Esmeralda Zamora, and this Sunday morning we have our weather answers with Rich, our meteorologist Rich Segal, here to talk all things weather and viewer-related questions are going to be answered all here. Rich, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. I've made it so that I will not mess up when graphics today, like we did last week. And I held two over the graphics that I wasn't able to show because I did mess up and I figured out why. So we're going to repeat a couple of questions that were asked last week that graphically I want just to show the viewers what we were talking about.
Yeah, taking a peek at those questions this morning, they all seem pretty interesting, and I would also want these to be answered as well.
Okay.
I'm sure that all the viewers are waiting to hear those answers.
We hope.
Let's kick off with the first question that we have, and that one is, you do a lot of vlogs about climate change. Why do you do them?
I think it's important that people know what's going on in our atmosphere. We want to talk about the weather, we want to talk about the climate, because we know that changes in the climate are affecting some people. For example, we know that when the air gets too hot, it causes some people to get sick. Same thing with these warm summer night lows that we were talking about last week. We want to try to explain why there has been so little rain here in the past couple of years. You know, we were talking with a friend of mine yesterday about the last time that the lake level was higher than it is and close to the top. And, you know, this has led to the drought. Why is this drought continuing to happen? We feel that it's important that people know about the changes that are going on in their climate without bombarding you. You know, we only really address climate change once a week, and that's usually with the blog that I wrote. Now, you know, all five of us, well, all six of us, counting our fill-in former chief Jim Spencer, you know, we all have varying degrees of how we feel about climate change, and we just feel that it's important that we educate people on what we believe that the science is showing. And in addition, what changes can be made. You know, Kristen on her morning show, on our CW Austin morning show, will have twice in the 2 hour show, the Climate Change Minute, things that you can do to help mitigate the effects of climate change. You know, we talk about things like recycling and simple things like that. And we just feel that it's important that people know from what the science is showing us what is going on with our climate. And again, you know, we know that there are people who agree with us and we know that there are people who disagree with us. And as long as the conversation is kept above board and respectable, you know, I'll have these conversations via email with people that are wanting to explain to me why they may not feel the same way that I do. And it's healthy. But when you get a little bit nasty, we're not going to answer.
Yeah, and I feel like we've gotten a few of those after talking about climate change here on KXAN Plus. So we talk about climate change a lot. What are some of the ways that we can work to help the climate and some of those helpful resources we could use?
Well, you know, one of the easiest things that people can do, and there are some people that find this too cumbersome, and that is to just simply recycle, you know, and get rid of single-use plastic bottles and use, you know, the Yetis and all of those brands of water containers that all you have to do is just refill it. And, you know, something as simple as that makes a big difference. Using less water, you know, using less hot water, things like using utensils and china instead of paper plates that just fill the landfill and don't really decompose as nicely as we would like them to. There are so many different websites out there that will tell you how you can make a change, a subtle change. And if people, you know, were to take better care of the planet, then we wouldn't be talking as much about it. But as long as we continue to see these, by the way, there is one more thing I forgot, and that is when we do talk about this, you know, we've noticed, for example, the tropical storms becoming more intense and hurricanes are becoming more intense. We need to explain why that's happening, what's causing it. So anyway, back to your question, simple things that we can do make a huge difference down the road.
Yes, and those are things you can do every day in your
Every
routine.
single day. You know, Kristen will sometimes with an upcoming holiday, She'll be talking, I'm sure not next week, but the week after, about how you can have a sustainable July 4th holiday celebration. So
July 4th is a popular time to go to the beach, and you want to make sure you're keeping it clean.
Exactly. You know, we want to keep our beaches clean. You know, there are a lot of people that go to the beach and trash the beach. There are a lot of people that go on the lake and trash the lake. You know, you can't do that. It's just not a good thing to do. But we just want you to be aware of the changes in our climate, and that includes the blog that I that I've written that we'll talk about tomorrow. Well, you and I will talk about it this morning, but Kristen and I will chat about it tomorrow
morning. Well, our second question here is, the weather team says to keep the KXAN app radar on past, but I cannot get it off future. The future doesn't respond to touch in order to change. I've looked everywhere. I think, please advise.
All right, so there are a couple of things. If you're not successful at going to the bottom right and clicking on, there are, I believe, 3 choices. There's future, there's past and future, and there's past. Now, the reason, because the viewer also wrote that, I did not put this in, that's a little weird to, have the setting go from a couple of hours past to the present, because what happens going into the future is a computer-generated suggestion about what may happen down the road, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. According to our chief meteorologist, Nick Bannon, click that there are 3 dots above that rectangle where you can go past and future, or future, but there are 3 dots, and if you click on the 3 dots, I'm reading this off the screen, then select, I think it's on the far left side, precipitation, and then in parentheses radar, then click on the X, then you should be able to get to where you need to get to. If that doesn't work, drop me a line and we'll try to investigate that a little bit further, and I'll have the email address coming up at the end of our segment.
Yes, and it's also important to make sure that the app is up to date. Make sure you go to the App Store and update it, because that can cause some issues when you are using the app.
Yeah, when I was having a little problem with mine, and this was before I came back to work here, I found that if I uninstalled the app and then installed it again, that seemed to have taken care of the problem that I was having. So you might want to try that and see if that will work a little better for you. And again, if it doesn't, let us know and we will try to research this further for you.
Yes, it could be an issue on our end, or it could be an issue with the app on your phone. So just try both.
Computer technology sometimes has its problems as well.
Yes, it does.
In addition to the people that use the computer technology.
Well, our third question here is pretty long. Watch your weather daily, but I need my wife to interpret your scale of severity or rainfall/hail, as I do not see colors. So unless she's with me, I have no idea where the severe storms are or possible hail. Is there any way to resolve this for people that are colorblind?
Yeah, this is going to take a little bit of doing, and we've already sent a note up the line about this to see if there's any way that we can figure out how we can make that a little bit better. And I just wanted the viewer to know that we have seen the question and seen the concern, and so we have sent this up the line to see if we can't get a better answer for how we can make this better, if it's even possible to do that. I'll tell you that there is one of our employees in the building who was also colorblind, and he has addressed this before. He says it's a little difficult, and he has to have someone interpret what the storms are doing because of that. So you're not alone, okay? And as soon as I get an answer, I will drop you a line and let you know what we were able to find out.
Yeah, that's going to take a bit of investigating to see what
that may not be an easy fix if it's a fix that could happen at all. So, but we're not going to give up on trying to figure out a way to make this better.
Yeah, for sure. Our fourth question and our last question is from last week, like you mentioned. What is a microburst?
Yeah, so what happened last week was I had turned this graphic off, and that's why it never showed up. This is in response to a storm system that moved through Travis County a few weeks ago and created some very strong winds and some damaging winds as well. So what a microburst is, as you see on our screen here, it's a strong downdraft of air. It's at the tail end of a dissipating thunderstorm. The air has to go somewhere when the storm is in the dissipating stage. And this rush of air to the ground causes those gusty winds that I think got up into the 80s during that storm that moved through our area. Now, they're small in nature. They do not last long, and they give pilots a headache, especially with takeoff and landing. So that is what a microburst is. It's a downdraft of air. It happens when you see a dissipating thunderstorm. Well, as you said, the air has to go somewhere, and it rushes to the ground.
Yes, that is interesting because
Yeah.
we were trying to figure that one out last week and we couldn't get it to work. But these are all the viewer questions that we have for today, this Sunday. I'm sure we will have many more next Sunday. But like you mentioned, you have your blog.
Yeah, can you
posted.
just really pop up the screen real quick? I just want to share the email address. Can you do that real quick?
Your weather
for me?
graphics?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is where you can write to us, send your questions to us. Report it, reportit at KXAN.com. And we'll try to answer as many of these as possible. We get to them as we can. But if you send it to us today, it'll probably make it on to next week's Facebook Live.
Yeah, you have a week until our next Facebook Live.
That's right.
We also, in your graphic, it said we are live on Facebook. We are also live on YouTube. We're live on our website. We are live on our app.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Even our KXAN Plus streaming app, free on your TV. If you have Roku TV, Fire TV, or Apple TV, you can watch this and much more content on there. We have that article that you published here.
Yeah.
What are we looking at?
Well, this was something that came across a few weeks ago, and it was delayed in getting. I was delayed in getting to it. I really have a strong appreciation for the work of Climate Central scientists. That again, they are the ones that are studying the changes that are going on in our climate. We have determined, or not we. I'm sorry. They have determined over the course of 50 plus years that summers are getting hotter. They identified the potential reason for it. They give statistics. They analyzed about 234 cities and found that 97% of them have summers that are getting hotter. And what was alarming to me was the statistic that said here in Austin from 1970 through 2024, Austin has had 50 more days of extreme heat in 2024 versus what they had in 1970. So we write about this. The average change in temperature you see on the screen there is a little more than 4.5 degrees change between 1970 and 2024. And you see towards the very top on the right side, you see that spike in 2011, and that was the summer that we had 90 days of triple-digit heat. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to be, at least for now, in the first few days of summer, we've only had 2 triple-digit high-temperature days, and that's not bad. But our article talks about, in the general overall pattern of things, and there's this statistic that said we've had more than 50 days of temperatures above normal. It has gone up from what it was in 1970 to plus 50 here in 2024. So we'll spend a little time with Kristen on our weather chat tomorrow talking about that. We'll tell you about what other parts of the country are experiencing and where the change has not been all that great.
Yes, and that article is already on our website, KXAN.com. You can find it right on the homepage. It's titled Hotter Than Normal, Summertime Heat is Back. Rich, thanks for joining me here.
Thank you.
What can you give us a peek about the rest of the weather for today?
Well, on our show, our 3 shows this morning, we just talked about how quick it was to put this forecast together. Shouldn't say that because some people may not appreciate that, but it didn't take long to put it together. The low rain chances in the forecast, warm, muggy mornings, hot and somewhat humid afternoons. We'll keep highs below 100 for the next at least 7 days and probably beyond that as well going into the second week outlook, which includes July 4th. Mm-hmm. But for the rest of today and on through the rest of the week, we'll start out with morning clouds. We'll see some gradual clearing mid to late morning into the afternoon. Most highs will be in the in the low to mid 90s, and most overnight lows will be in averaging the mid 70s, around 73 to 77, some a little lower out in the hill country, some a little higher north and east of Austin.
Any rain chances this week?
10%
10%
each day.
each day. Wow. Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed because we need some rain out here. Rich, thanks for joining me this Sunday, and we will see you next Sunday.
Thank you.